personal hygiene products, clothing, and socially emotional games, and toys for each of the 50 Madison School District schools. Additional care boxes filled with gear for the district shared resources collection and homelessness support programs were donated to the schools. We worked with school administration and social workers to identify lists of highly desirable and in-demand items, and we filled the boxes with those. We donated fully loaded and individualized STEAM makerspace carts to each of the schools in the district, as well as a massive donation of requested high-end STEAM education equipment for the shared resources loan collection that can be checked out by the schools. These gifts will inspire collaboration, creativity, and problem solving in students of all ages for many years to come. TASK relied on the expertise from DEMCO, who provided recommendations for makerspace products and STEAM activities to ensure alignment with MMSD curriculum. And we are very, very grateful to DEMCO for their partnership in this effort. DEMCO is the long-standing Adopt-a-School partner for Hawthorne Elementary. In addition to what I've already shared, TASK donated the funding for a full month's worth of food supplies to each of the 8 MMSD food pantry programs worth over $10,000. An employee scholastic book fair was also held during our company meeting, which raised money through individual contributions. 5 heavy boxes of donated book fair books were delivered to the foundation and will be donated to schools as classroom reading sets. Lindbergh has been TASK's Adopt-a-School partner since 2016. So all the funding above and beyond the cost for the Scholastic Book Fair will be donated to Lindbergh School so they can purchase books for their library and classrooms. Even though we didn't get the chance to share these gifts in person with our amazing school partners across the city, we built relationships that we believe will last for a long time. We're very proud of this effort and the positive impact to students' lives that will result. And when all the dust settles from COVID, TASK would absolutely be interested in finding new and innovative ways that employees could help build those makerspace carts or volunteer with the schools or partner with the schools in other ways. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share this with you today. Now I'll send it back to Melinda.
Thank you very much, Leslie, and thank you again for TASK's extraordinary partnership with the school district and the foundation. At this point, I'd love to introduce my colleague, Carrie Miller, who is our Associate Director for Alumni Engagement. Carrie.
Thank you, Melinda. As part of the foundation's efforts to form greater connections with and also between our graduates and the community, we're really thrilled to be launching a district-wide alumni network called the Madison Public Schools Friends and Alumni Network. This is made possible through grants from the Madison Community Foundation and the Nimick Forbes-Way Foundation. As we all well know, this year's graduating seniors are facing an increasingly unclear future as they enter alumnihood. And as such, we're eager to welcome them as early members into this new community of fellow alumni from around the world, and to help them make the educational and career connections that they'll surely need in order to succeed in these times. In an effort to honor the incredible hard work and accomplishments of these graduating students, the foundation has provided $5,000 across the 6 high schools to support their graduation activities. We've been really delighted to see the thoughtful and creative ways that the schools are finding to celebrate their graduates, and feel grateful that we've been able to contribute to these efforts. Now I want to speak just a little more about the Madison Public Schools Friends and Alumni Network itself. This new community will provide a free way for alumni and community supporters alike to stay connected and engaged in activities that strengthen our schools and also each other. Madison Public Schools alumni, MMSD employees, supporters, and friends of the district will all be encouraged to join via the network website. And those who do will receive regular access to news, volunteer opportunities, networking events, alumni profiles, and an alumni directory, among some other things. As we work to build this new network for our community, of course, input from our alumni and friends is of utmost importance. And as such, we've recently deployed a community interest survey to close to 24,000 alumni that's asking for their input on the information, services, and opportunities that they would like to receive from this new alumni network. Once the survey closes in early June, we'll be reviewing and analyzing all of the feedback received. We'll then work to further refine the website, our strategy, and our offerings for alumni, and look forward to broadly launching this new network to the community in the very near future. Again, we're very grateful for the partnership of MMSD and the support from the Madison Community Foundation and the Nimick Forbesway Foundation that has made all of this work possible. And we look forward to growing our relationship with alumni and community supporters. With that, Melinda, I'll hand it back over to you.
All right, I'm not sure if, I think my video is coming back on. Thanks, Carrie. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Mary Reinders, our teacher program manager, who will introduce you to our newest program in addition to our new alumni network. Mary?
Thanks, Melinda. So today I have the privilege of introducing you to the Foundation's emerging teacher supply program. It's called Teachers Pets, and it stands for Progress, Equity, Tools, and Supplies for Classrooms and Teachers. So teachers helped to create the foundation, and they were very involved with the initial fundraising efforts to establish our first endowment. In honor of that history, we've always supported teachers in their classrooms. As we prepared for our 20th anniversary, we decided to take a step back and consider new ways to support a much greater percentage of MMSD's 5,500 staff members. At the same time, we gained a much greater understanding of another area of inequity, classroom supplies. They often take the form of basic needs materials for students, running the gamut from school supplies to more personal needs, such as clothing, toothpaste, soap, and even healthy snacks. The district absolutely provides resources and materials and supplies to our schools, and we also partner with parents and families in the community to bring materials to classrooms each year. But unfortunately, not all of our families are able to fulfill supply lists that teachers give out, leading our teachers to spend an average of $500 and sometimes more of their own money each year trying to meet those needs. So why does this matter? Robust research around the nation provides compelling evidence about the difference in equitable materials for every student makes in terms of teacher efficacy and morale, as well as student engagement and performance. In short, this is critically important to MMSD as well as the broader community. Throughout the Foundation's journey to launch a teacher supply program, we've consulted with teachers themselves, directly learning from them about their experiences and pain points throughout the school year. But ultimately, we co-created Teachers Pets along with them, as opposed to doing something to them, walking in their shoes. This winter, thanks to the EVU Foundation and retired MMSD teacher Pat Skiro, we launched our pilot phase of Teachers Pets, providing $8,000 in supplies to 100 teachers impacting more than 1,400 students at Midvale Elementary, Lincoln Elementary, and Cherokee Heights Middle Schools. Easy Office Products, a local Madison business, provided materials at cost and on an in-kind basis, providing the online store platform, as well as order picking, packing, and delivery. Retired teachers also lent a hand, providing some administrative support, as well as friendly, personalized deliveries right at the schools. All of the materials available in the store came directly from our teachers' wish lists. So now we're working on the next phase of Teachers Pets for the coming school year. And we're building at the right pace, making improvements as we scale up with fundraising for expanded inventory and offerings to serve more teachers in their classrooms. The one thing we do know is that during a time of maybe future crisis or opportunity, we want Teachers Pets to be ready to meet the needs of our community. I welcome your questions, and there's a lot more to say about Teachers Pets, but I will conclude my remarks with this quote from Ji Kong, a third through fifth grade teacher at Lincoln Elementary. She told us, not only does this program provide supplies that are especially in short supply toward the latter half of the school year, it also demonstrates that the community cares about us and our students. Thank you. Back to you, Melinda.
Thank you very much, Mary. And now I'd like to introduce Mo Cheeks, who is a former Foundation board member and still a member of our advocacy committee. Mo, over to you.
Thank you, Melinda. As you all have heard today, the Foundation has been rapidly responding to community needs during COVID. But even before this crisis, the reality is that state funding for K-12 public education has been declining for years. Some time ago, the Foundation recognized that we needed to play a role in this arena in addition to our traditional annual support of our schools. And as such, we added advocacy to our mission statement back when I was on the board in 2015. Since then, we've gained a great deal of experience and focus and have built an advocacy program. Naturally, we're paying a great deal of attention to MMSD's plans and needs, and we are prepared to play a central role in working with our community to secure the greatest amount of public support possible. This pandemic has highlighted the racial and economic inequalities across our country and right here in our own community. It's likewise highlighted the opportunities that exist to continue strengthening our community, which naturally means strengthening our public schools. This is something that will be at the heart of our advocacy efforts. To that end, we're excited to share that we've created a new 501c4 organization called Schools Make Madison Advocacy as our advocacy arm. While more details about the 501c4 might be beyond the scope of this particular event, members of the press, or for that matter, anyone else looking to learn more about the future of this work can contact Melinda Heinrichs, who is also the executive director of this new entity. I'm really proud to acknowledge this recognition that advocacy is a cornerstone of our mission as we seek to deliver support and resources to MMSD students and families and staff and our schools. It's clear that COVID-19 has heightened our community's awareness of all that our schools do and our appreciation for teachers. And so we look forward to working with our community to advocate for a strong future for our public schools.
Thank you, Mo. And last but not least, Betsy Hebel, who is a longstanding friend of the foundation and is our chair-elect as of September 1st. She'll be the chair of the foundation during our 20th anniversary year. Betsy?
Thanks, Melinda. On behalf of the board, I'd like to thank MMSD again for this opportunity and members of the press for your time and attention. I'd also like to recognize the foundation staff for their effort and hard work during this very trying time. If you have follow-up questions after today, please contact Melinda directly. My support and involvement with the Foundation for Madison Public Schools began over 18 years ago when it was a young organization and my children were students in the district. I really appreciate the quality education my children received, but equally as important, I believe every child deserves the opportunity to start life with a quality, welcoming, and responsive educational experience. I'm committed to working with the foundation to help grow its support for MMSD so they can continue to do the work of educating the next generations. While the Alumni Network and Teachers' Pets are in their formative stages, the foundation has many established programs and services that are now available to all 50 MMSD schools. One of the most important aspects of the foundation's work is its ability to facilitate and foster connections between the community and the school district to help support and provide resources for the students, families, and teachers in our public schools. As we continue our work to grow these programs that will have a larger impact on all of our students, we also know sometimes the little things we have the ability to make happen can be equally as important. Before the long holiday weekend, we quickly facilitated the donation from two of our partners, Task and Easy Office Products, a huge container of personal items, basic need materials, and brand new books from Task, and 2 full boxes of Bic pens, markers, activity books, and sidewalk chalk from Easy Office Products. All were delivered immediately to Janie Kester from the district's transitional education program for distribution to help over 80 families in our district facing housing issues or homelessness. This is just a brief example of the foundation making it easy for community partners to give to one central place that's flexible and quick acting to serve MMSD students and their families. We know our public schools need our support now more than ever before. The foundation is proud of our growing impact and thankful to a generous community that understands Schools Make Madison. Thanks again for your time and attention, and I'll turn it back over to Jane.
Thank you so much, Betsy, Melinda, Mary, Leslie, Carrie, Mary, Mo,
And Betsy, again, since you're serving twice, we are so grateful for this partnership, and it's really so important for MMSD, and we're just so excited to see it growing and really responding to the needs of all of our students. So we really appreciate you for that. I'm going to turn it back over to Tim now. I think we're ready to take some questions.
Thank you, Jane. We're going to start with the Wisconsin State Journal with Logan Rogie.
Hi all, thanks again for holding these weekly press conferences. I'd like to start off with a couple of questions related to Forward Dane and the CDC's guidance for reopening schools. So last week, Dane County released its reopening plan for Dane. Can someone kind of provide an explanation of what reopening and what sort of restrictions would be in place if the Madison School District decided to move forward under this plan?
So I can take that and then hand it off if some other people want to join in. So basically, we are in the process right now of creating some models and plans that we think we can move forward with in the fall. We're just in the developing process, but we're certainly looking closely at all of those guidelines. And as you know, there's criteria and timelines in each of those phases, and something a little bit different happening based on those. So we're analyzing that right now. We know that there are quite a few things that are going to have to be in place, and we're structuring to look at the organizational aspects that need to be in place, as well as the instructional aspects that need to be in place. All of that keeping in mind our focus on equity, our social and emotional focus for kids and families, and certainly the economic picture of our community that we play a big role in. So we're working with them, as just about everybody else is and every other institution, to see what it's going to mean for us as we move through our plans now for the closing of school, which we've kind of worked through all of that, for summer school, and we've gotten a plan going for that. So this is our next important work, and we've started on it, and we'll hopefully be able to keep you guys up to date as we move along. Does anybody else want to add anything to that? I see maybe Jay's here and Lisa.
Yeah, Jane, I can jump in.
Here. Okay.
Logan, thanks for the question. And as we touched on last time, and as Jane mentioned, I think we're planning for kind of any and all of the above. Certainly any plan to return would include a focus on physical distancing and maybe some schedule adjustments to accommodate potentially health screenings, at a minimum questions, perhaps temperatures, making sure that all of our students and staff know that they should be staying home with symptoms, a focus on hand washing and hygiene, considerations for face coverings, cleaning and disinfecting and those routines. So, and we're just sort of scratching the surface here, but obviously it helps when we get additional detail to the guidance. And then as the summer unfolds, we get a clearer picture of what the fall will bring. We'll be prepared for whichever of these recommendations we will have in place as we return.
Thank you, Jay. And I know Chad is here. I don't know if he has anything to add to that, but you know, focused on the things that we're always focused on in terms of student learning, and just being made complicated by the fact that we do have these other additional criteria to work with. So thank you, Logan, for that.
Thank you. And to follow up on that, schools would be able to resume in-person instruction under phase 2 and 3 of Forward Dane. A different part of the plan, though, limits in-person mass gatherings to 50 people in phase 2 and 100 people in phase 3. I guess, you know, does that mean you can't have more than 100 people in a school building under phase 3? Or would that be, say, 100 people in a gymnasium for like a pep rally or something?
It's based on the square footage of the space. But those are the kind of things that we're really going to have to run through and look at each option, because depending upon where we are, it could be different. We may not get to those phases. So we have to be prepared. And, you know, we're looking at
options that will provide us the most opportunity to pivot back and forth if we need to. So again, that's another layer that we're taking into account there.
Thank you. And just one more final question. CDC updated its guidance last week for reopening schools, and some of them include serving lunch to students in their classrooms, spacing desks at least 6 feet apart, facing the same direction. There's been comments from superintendents across the country about how this might not be feasible. You know, from your perspective, are there guidelines the CDC is putting out that would be feasible, and are there others that might not be?
Yes and yes. And I think that those guidelines, you know, are changing and have changed, and thus the need to really be flexible with that. But one of the things that we are doing with our summer programming is having small groups of students, looking at how we do that social distancing, looking at how we are going to feed students, how we're getting them to school, so that will give us some sense of what kinds of things are really feasible and what things we may not be able to do. Chad, did you want to add anything to that? I know you have groups working on this already. Okay, guess not. Oh, there he is.
Hey, Jane, you looked away from the camera just a little bit. Which part did you want me to comment on? The feeding part?
Yeah, I think Logan was talking about, you know, like how realistic is it that we can do that and some of the transportation things.
Yeah, Logan, a couple things kind of in my world that we've been working on right now. Certainly, we're going to have to continue to work with, you know, our local agencies on guidance related. You know, on transportation right now, they're recommending that, you know, 6 feet of social distance, which could mean on a school bus where you may only have 24 seats, having either a student per seat or even a student every other seat. And that will certainly cause challenges as far as transportation. And the same is true on us trying to coordinate how to serve breakfast and lunch in our school. So we've got teams working on all that in terms of what type of staffing and even what the meals might look like if we're dropping off lunches in every classroom, how you'd clean before and clean after, are all things we're going to have to take into consideration when we're putting our plan together. So yeah, the guidelines are certainly things that we will use just as guidelines. And I think it'll be on our district, especially a district of our size, to continue to work with those local agencies to give them the appropriate feedback.
Thank you, Chad.
All right, thank you very much. Those were all the questions I had.
Thanks, Logan.
Thank you, Logan. We'll go next to Sanika with NBC 15.
Where the school board stands in the search for a new superintendent. I know they were planning to start interviews in June.
And that is still the plan. I think the position posting closes at the end of May. And so they do have a timeline that takes them through June in terms of interviewing and making those decisions.
Is there a timeline right now as to when the school board will be making a decision?
They are hoping to make the decision and make an announcement by July 20th. Nikki, I believe that's correct.
I believe so.
Yeah, so
I'm looking forward to
a lot of work ahead of you.
I'm looking forward to the challenge.
The last question I had was, I wanted to ask if somebody could speak about plans for the summer food program and how and if that's going to go forward under CDC and Dane County guidelines.
Chad, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, you bet, Jane. So yeah, we are planning on doing a summer food program. At this point, we've got at least 16 sites, if not a few more we're considering right now. Our current food program will go right up into the start of what would have been the beginning of summer school on June 20th. And at that point, we are going to change just a few sites that we have seen a little lower participation rate at and switch them to some new sites where we think will be in closer proximity to families. So we are planning on continuing our food program through the summer.
Thank you. That's all the questions I had.
Thank you. Next is Talil with News 3.
Hello, thanks again for doing this again this week, guys. So my question is about the fall semester as well. So one of the things you guys have talked about is basically maybe doing some sort of a hybrid model. And I just wanted to clarify that that would mean potentially having some in-person elements and some online elements to learning. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you for that question. We think we'll need to continue to stay strong in our virtual learning response, and that will be part of our program planning as we move forward in really looking at all the different opportunities there may be for bringing children back into school.
Thank you. And then kind of my second question is related to sports and the sports facilities. Do we have any plans on how that would look like beyond the July 31st date, or is that kind of the marker at this point?
Thank you for that question. Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, really it's science that's going to guide us on what we need to do and the recommendations from the CDC. I know we just got some communication just recently from the National Federation about some best practices, and I know I'll work with Chad's team in building services as we create those systems. And I think, it's too early to say exactly what that would look like, but I know it won't look like it did last August. And I think we can probably say that about all of those things. And we're going to try to do our best to connect. I think when you look at it, in the fall, we've got 44 programs, over 125 teams, which means 2,000 student athletes, hundreds of officials, event workers, things like that. And how do we keep all of them safe and do that following those guidelines? And we'll work through that and find ways, if it is safe to return, to get them back to the field as soon as we can.
Thanks, Jeremy. Tim?
Next will be Yvonne Kim with the Cap Times.
Hi, I just had one question. I was wondering if you could provide any updates on virtual learning in terms of attendance. I know that a lot of districts across the country have been reporting increasingly lower numbers as the school year comes to an end. So do you have any updates on that?
Thanks, Siobhan. We do, and I can turn it over to Jay. We've kind of gone through this a couple of times, but it's good to remind people how we're doing this. Jay, do you want to share that, please?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, thanks again for that question. Our percentages of students that we've been in touch with has continued to hold. We were at 94.3% for this past week, 94.7% for the week prior, which is really, allowing us to meet our primary objective throughout virtual learning and making sure that we're staying in touch and ensuring that our students and families have what they need. Our overall percentage was at 82.5%, again, largely as secondary students begin to take a little bit of a break. And as the year wraps up, it's fairly typical, as you mentioned, for districts to see a bit of a decline, especially with secondary students late in the school year like this. But the fact that overall we've been able to keep in touch with 94%, and the fact that we're still holding at 82% with just a few days here left in the school year, we've been really, really proud of that. And I also just want to recognize that our support staff and their outreach to make sure that they're staying connected has been really successful. And whenever we've had students that we haven't been in touch with for a couple of days, they reach out and they've been successful in re-engaging. So we've been really, really proud of that too.
Thank you, Jake.
Can you clarify really quickly the difference between the first set of percentages and then the second overall percentage?
Yeah, sorry if that wasn't clearer. So the percent of students that we're in touch with, that means that one of our staff members has engaged with that student throughout the week. And primarily that's through Google Classroom or Seesaw as our instructional platforms. It could also be through email, a Zoom contact, phone calls, any sort of connection and contact throughout the week. The overall percentage is actually number of classes attended, meaning a high school student that has 7 teachers that might mean that they were in touch with 5 of their 7 teachers over the course of the week, which shows just a slight decline, and that then explains that difference. Whereas an elementary student that is in touch with their teacher, they would be shown as fully attendant as well.
Great, thank you. That's the only question I had.
Thank you. Next up is Savannah with Spectrum News 1.
Hey everybody, thanks as always for doing these. I think this is a Jerry
Savannah, you'll have to repeat that question.
but
Yeah,
a little bit, I'm sorry, about trying to do some sort of guided.
Savannah, you may want to turn your video off and just talk. We're having a hard time.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you a little bit better now. Or not.
Savannah, are you there? All right, let's move on to Jade with WRT.
Hi. Yes, I think this question might be again for Jay, but I was just wondering what kind of support is the staff asking for as we look forward to the fall, whether we go back to school in some form or we're doing distance learning.
I'm sorry, Jade, what kind of support is who looking for?
The teachers.
The teachers, okay.
Or I guess staff.
Sure, absolutely. Jade, I think that's a complex question, but a good one. And I can tell you that, over these last 2 months, we've learned a lot about virtual learning, and our staff have very quickly pivoted and adjusted and developed their ability to instruct in different platforms. And we'll certainly take that expertise with us into the fall. As we've discussed, we know that we need to be flexible and prepare for in-person learning, more virtual learning, hybrids thereof, and the ability to shift quickly back and forth. So as Jane mentioned earlier, we have teams that are working on the academic needs. That will include the ability to kind of assess where students are and make some quick adjustments to make sure we're doing our best to accelerate their learning and try to get caught back up. We also know that our students will be bringing with them, more trauma than they usually will bring to the start of a school year. And we want our teachers to make sure that they're also focusing on the social and emotional needs of our kids, but also on their own social and emotional needs, and recognizing that they've also been through a lot these past couple months, and we'll be asking a lot of our entire district community as we head into the fall. And so we're doing our best to prepare resources to support students and their academic and social emotional needs, and then also those needs of our staff as well.
And I would just add to what Jay has been saying is we're looking right now at, in fact, I think yesterday and today, we're getting surveys out to our students, our families, and our staff to really try to examine what has gone well during virtual learning and what they still need or feel challenged around. And so that will also be helping to inform us around what staff and students and families need, but and will help us shape the kind of professional development that we want to offer staff. But again, want to stress, as Jay said, the staff have also experienced some trauma just like students and our families have. So we need to just be mindful of that as we help them prepare to move into fall.
I have another question about access to Wi-Fi. Could someone give us an update about how many students have access? And I know there was a lot of talk about hotspots earlier in the pandemic.
Exactly. Thank you. Chad can do that, I'm sure.
Sure, Jane, I can take that. We have done really two main things. We've expanded the number of sites where we've installed outdoor Wi-Fi access that have long-range antennas, where we have our own network reaching out on our school grounds and into our neighborhoods as far as 1,000 feet. And the other thing we've done that's certainly more localized and to each student is we have been issuing hotspots to students that are in need of steady internet access. And that's still continuing. We have a delivery protocol set up where if a student has a need for a device or has internet need, we are utilizing a Badger bus and an MMSD security assistant. And we are actually delivering hotspots the day after a student requests them. So we are approaching 400 of those hotspots that we've delivered over the last couple of weeks. So that's been going well. I think we're heading in the direction of making sure that our students, for sure the students that are accessing virtual summer school still have access to that. And we are also exploring the possibility of leaving those hotspots in the hands of our students who may not even be using them for summer school, just to make sure that we can continue to connect with them throughout the summer. So we feel really good about the fact that when a family and or student reaches out to us, we're almost immediately responsive in terms of providing them internet access.
Thank you, Chad. I just lift up here too, Jade, that this is an issue for our whole community, and it's an issue for our nation, this discrepancy in being able to provide internet service. And we'll continue to say we've done a great job of trying to mitigate that circumstance, but it is one of those things that the abrupt closing of schools just really highlighted the need. And again, we're grateful to the foundation for helping us support that effort to make sure that all of our children had access and devices to be able to stay connected. So thank you for that question.
Can I just ask Chad a follow-up on that too? You mentioned that kids might be able to keep their hotspots. Is there a plan to take Chromebooks back in the next couple? I know school's over in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we had explored that early, that we've got some devices that are on the end of a leasing cycle, and we have made the determination to allow students to keep their devices all summer. And we will deal with device returns if and when students return in the fall. So no, we will not be organizing any type of Chromebook retrieval this summer for a variety of reasons. I think number one is leading with the fact that we think it's probably best for students who need devices to still have them throughout the summer, regardless of whether they're enrolling in online summer school or not. So no, kids will be able to keep their Chromebooks all summer.
I believe there are plans for seniors to drop off their Chromebooks.
Yep, those would be the only sets of students that we'll be retrieving. Some of that will probably begin as early as next week. And the rest of the students will keep them. Honestly, there's been many things that will come out of this crisis that will make our district better in the end. Some of the things we've done to connect students regarding technology, I think this is an example of. I think we're kind of going to prove to ourselves as a district that it's probably okay to just have students issued a device. Heck, some of them will keep them 3 or 4 years and turn them in like a book, after 4 years of use. And just allow them to have them throughout the summer. And I think we all feel good about that.
Thanks, Chad.
Yep.
Thank you so much for answering my questions. That's all for me today.
Thank you. And next up is Danny Maxwell with 27 News.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for taking these calls. I just wanted to clarify something that was said earlier about just going through creating the models and plans for the fall. And I thought I heard a possibility would be some of these things that students might be doing differently as far as the physical distancing, but also health screenings, temperature checks, face coverings. That's still all a possibility, correct? And can you go through what some of those things might look like as the students come in school for the day?
Well, those are definitely the things, some of them that we'd be looking at. And I think that's what we're really getting our plans together for this summer programming model so that we can learn more about that. I saw Janet here earlier, and she and Chad have gone into the most detail around thinking that through right now, but she may not still be here. Chad or Jay, do you want to add anything to that list that Jay was reading off?
Yeah, Danny, what you listed off there, and certainly the things that are in the CDC guidance and the DPI guidance that we've gotten, in addition to being in close contact with Public Health Madison and Dane County, and then also our physician consults. Those are all things that we're considering. You know, it's pretty typical what a lot of businesses are putting in place through Forward Dane and asking questions as people are entering, making sure that that they don't have any symptoms of anything that would indicate that they have the virus. Potentially use of no-touch thermometers, and obviously trying to create efficiencies to get staff and students into buildings. Beyond that, I can't go into a great level of detail. You know, until the recommendations are finalized and we have a better sense of exactly what the fall would look like. You know, we're not going to finalize exactly what those things look like, but you know, what you're asking about are all definitely things that we're considering, and we'll put in place whatever we need to do to meet those recommendations.
And some of those details, I think they are working out through summer programming. There's Janet. Some of the things that we've looked at, though, just in terms of research, there's a number of different ways you can have children kind of understand what 6 feet, what 6 feet looks like, and through marks on floors, placing their desk, placing their chairs, using different kind of measuring devices to help them understand that. But in the hand washing, again, is teaching protocols and making sure they have time for washing hands. And that's going to be, I mean, we've always had time for washing hands, but it's going to be more frequent and really more of a part of the schedule. So those are just two things I can think of. The temperature thing is probably going to be really important, and how we manage the number of kids getting into the building and out of the building and into the bus and out of the bus. So Anna, did you have anything to add to that?
I would just say that one of the things that we're planning for this summer are staggered start times. So all of the kids will not be arriving to the site at the same time, so that we can ensure once a student does arrive that we have time to have them go to our health screening station. We will have a nurse assistant on site at each of our schools this summer to provide those screenings upon arrival and throughout the day.
Well, that kind of goes into my next question, because I was going to ask about that with the transportation issue. If we can't put enough kids on a bus, or the number that we normally would have on a bus, is that going to create any issues with school start times or staggered start times for fall?
I'm quite certain it will be an issue. You know, just mathematically, it's an issue. Plus the fact that you know, it's not just, wouldn't just be a matter of adding more buses. That's not readily accessible or easy to do, but many of our bus drivers are probably in the category of being more at risk. So yeah, there's just a lot to think about with transportation. And so again, hopefully we'll be learning from the staggered start times in the summer, what the timing on that could be, and then trying to, you know, figure out if there would be an alternative schedule that would make sense and be feasible for kids.
Superintendent Belmore, or anyone really, what is kind of the timeline on figuring out what's going to happen for the fall? Or do you have a time limit of when we need to make a decision by this date so we can have planning time before school starts?
Yeah, we actually are just, that's part of our beginning work right now, and we're planning some draft timelines. So I think I could have more for you maybe next week, because we do have some things that we're trying to put in place and what we have to think about. But again, I think the key is going to be flexibility, because we could have a plan pretty much completed and have something occur externally and need to go back and be flexible with that plan. So just as the plans have to be flexible, I think the timelines have to be a little flexible, but we're hoping by the end of July, 1st of August, that we have things ready to, you know, to use that time to actually do all the details that we need to do to get the schools ready to start. I don't know, Chad, did you maybe have anything to add to that? I think that's pretty much where we are, because we just have started really talking, you know, what that timeline is going to look like.
Yeah, so, I think the question around transportation is a great one, and likely, many of the plans we build, there's going to be a back and forth both internally in our own district in terms of what we're recommending in accordance with those guidelines. And also it will be important for us to continue to communicate with, our local health authorities and DPI regarding any of the challenges that we're facing in terms of what we want to do instructionally. So we would hate that transportation would actually limit what we want to do in our schools and in the classroom. But I think we're faced with the reality that it's a possibility that transportation may be one of the limiting factors that we're going to have to consider when we plan for the fall. There are only so many buses, only so many bus drivers, and only so much money that goes around in terms of transporting all of our students. So we have standing meetings right now with our transportation providers to continue this dialogue and just try to figure it out over the next month and a half, I think. So we've got a solid plan moving into the fall. As Dr. Billmore said, I think we're just going to have to be incredibly flexible. I think, to Jeremy's point earlier, science is going to lead this. We actually really don't know where this is going, and we're just going to have to try to put together flexible plans that we think work and keep our students safe, and keep health authorities in the loop as far as what we're thinking.
Thank you. And just one more quick question, and maybe this has already been addressed on a different call or a different news release that I did not see, but is there a plan for students to pick up any items they left at school for this past school year? And what is that plan?
Yes, the principals have made plans at their schools. We've given them some guidelines to go with, but they're basically putting out plans that are most appropriate for their school, their age level. And that's happening in the next couple of weeks, within those weeks.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next is Shelby Moyer with the Bravo magazine.
Hi, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Going back to resources that will be available for students, and specifically Wi-Fi and laptops, I'm assuming that not every student or every grade level is given a laptop. So if a student doesn't have that at home and we do more virtual hybrid type learning in the fall, what resources will be given to those students and how they'll be identified?
Yeah, so we are actually nearly a one-to-one district as it is. Our kindergartners and first graders were in a 2-student to 1 device setting, but we actually had enough spare devices to end up handing out a device to every student that needed one. So we have over 20,000 devices out in households right now. So we, at this point, we're really proud of the work we did with the tech plan. Thank goodness our school board and previous superintendent started this work 4 years ago. Yeah, we're essentially a one-to-one district, and students all have devices that need them.
Thank you for clarifying that. I have one other question in regards to resources. Students who have learning disabilities or aren't neurotypical, I'm wondering if what's being put in place for those who may need extra supports during school, if there is some kind of hybrid learning or adapted learning in the fall.
So that's an area we're really learning a lot about. And yes, there've been really some special supports put in place for students who have disabilities. And I'm going to let John Harper talk a little bit more specifically about that.
Hello, this is John. And yeah, thank you for that question. We are very much studying different service delivery models. Like has been noted earlier in this press conference, we've learned a tremendous amount about virtual learning, distance learning, and we are in the process of collecting some of the best practices, some of the systems and points of collaboration among staff that have actually produced a lot of engagement and significant amounts of learning. If we move to a more hybrid model, there may be opportunities where we want to reduce the density of students within a school. And there may be students where we need to have more one-on-one individualized services at our school sites, and they may draw a bit more priority in terms of on-site presence within the school, whereas other students can remain in some more distance learning opportunities and not be negatively impacted by that. So we're studying various different models. Nothing is solidified, but I can tell you that we're very much culling the best practices and are studying them intensely, so that if we need to move to a more hybrid model, that we're going to be prepared to do so.
If I may, I was just going to say, I agree with John. I know that the district has worked very hard on this issue. As someone who is not neurotypical, I definitely am following what the district is doing, and from what I see, they're being as flexible as possible.
Thank you, Nikki.
All right, I am going to ask this question on behalf of Spectrum One News, who was having technical difficulties earlier. That question is, what does virtual learning look like right now for virtual coaching, look like right now and into the future?
Virtual coaching for staff, for coaching, for Jeremy.
Virtual athletics.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Great question. I think we learned a lot over these last 2 months about different ways that we delivered things. And I think sometimes it's unique to the sport or unique to the coach and the program and the culture that they've established. There are a lot of things that were done this spring, live workouts via Zoom. As we work through asynchronous versus synchronous timing on what's the best delivery method for our kids, using Google Classroom as a way to store workouts and things like that, but also to work through the social and emotional component of what the benefits of athletics can be. There are a lot of those connecting things. We did some personal logs and journaling. There are some submitted assignments, some check-ins with coaches and across different grade levels with teams, kind of like you would do in an in-person setting. So, all of those different models, what we're allowed to do, WIA unrestricted school contact begins July 1st. And that's, we will do that virtually with the closure that we've kind of set up. And you get 5 days of that, and our programs will work to kind of establish what a virtual clinic looks like, publishing workouts and ways for the kids to connect in July. I know I talked with the athletic directors at Sun Prairie and Mount Horeb, even actually today, as they're following very similar guidance to what we put out regarding their closure and contact. And, we're all kind of working together, and it's really collaborative across the state as we look at ways to reach our student athletes.
All right, thank you. Next up, we're going to loop back to the Wisconsin State Journal with Logan Rogie with a follow-up question.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to make this quick. I just wanted to follow up on the topic of superintendent. So if the goal is to announce a superintendent pick by July 20th, when will the semifinalists be announced? And does that mean the goal is to have a permanent superintendent start by the fall?
So I'm going to ask Mike Herding or Deirdre to step on, as they have been working most closely with the search firm. Mike, are you there? Great.
Sure. Thank you, Logan. Would you ask the question once more? I just want to make sure I've heard the question clearly.
So if the goal is to announce the superintendent pick by July 20th, when is the timeline to announce the semifinalist? And then does that mean if the goal is to announce by July 20th that the permanent superintendent would start in the fall?
Okay, so not exact sure of the timeline with the semifinalists, but I would just restate that those are goals. We really hope that we have a new superintendent in place. by August 1st. Our board understands the extreme importance of doing a thorough job. That's why they reopened the search. They realize it's one of the most important things they're doing and taking it extremely serious and giving it very careful consideration, but recognize that there may have to be some flexibility in terms of a start date. And I think I'll defer to my colleague in HR who I'm working with on this as well with our board.
Deirdre, are you here?
I am here. Thank you.
Hey.
The only thing that I would add, Logan, is to just be thinking about this as most of the work that the board will be doing to finalize and make a decision is going to be happening in the months of June and July. It is their goal to have an announcement and hopefully a superintendent starting in the fall. So June, July, and August is where all of that activity is going to be happening. But as Mike said, we have to be flexible. We may or may not have a candidate, depending on who it is, that would be able to start that quickly. But that is the goal and the intent. So most of the activity will be happening June, July, and the beginning part of August.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Logan. I am at the end of our list. Are there any other reporters who have follow-up questions? All right, if there are no further questions, Jane, I'll turn it over to you to close.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Thank you all. These were really great questions and questions that obviously are on our minds too. So we really appreciate your input. And I just want to say before we leave again, a big thank you to the foundation. It's so interesting and supportive to hear the really creative and wonderful ways they have found to connect the community with our schools, from the school partners to now the new alumni network and Teachers Pet, and the advocacy that they do is really, really so appreciated by teachers, leaders, school board, and all of us. So thank you again. Thank you for joining us. So I think I will just say goodbye, and we'll probably have another press conference as soon as we have more news collected or more questions from you. So thank you for coming.